yesterday, a press release was put out by the Department of Education, and it said that they are going to be investigating 4 Kansas City area school districts, KCK, Shawnee Mission, Olathe, and also Topeka, for potential Title IX violations. Now, this came to the forefront courtesy of the Defense of Freedom Institute. They were the ones who basically flagged this. And Angela Morabito is here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming as always on our KCMO Talk Radio app. She is a former press secretary for the U.S. Department of Education under Trump 1.0. Angela, good morning. Thanks for being here. So first off, how did this entire thing start with these 4 Kansas school districts?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. So this complaint that we filed at the Defense of Freedom Institute, it's actually one of many. When we hear about a school district or a state education authority that is misbehaving, to put it kindly, and in fact, they're breaking the law. They are allowing boys into girls' sports and spaces, and in the case of these districts, they're also hiding students' gender transitions from parents. They're not particularly shy about it. These were written into all 4 districts' policies. And when this came to our attention, we went, whoa, this is illegal. This is dangerous for students. It's harmful to parents. We filed a federal complaint, and we're very pleased to see that the department's Office for Civil Rights found this worthy of an investigation. And they're going to look into this, and we hope bring these districts into compliance with the law.
Okay, so these districts put out statements yesterday after the Department of Education said that they're going to be investigating them. And like Olathe said, that they are obligated to follow all state and federal laws to support our students, staff, and families. They say here, to be clear, it is our expectation that staff work directly with families regarding student-related matters involving their own children. And they say there have been no specific situations identified in Olathe Public Schools related to the allegations outlined in the investigation letter. What do you say to that?
Well, we don't want to wait for something to go wrong because of their bad policies. We want to stop their bad policies effectively, we hope, before they start, and bring them into compliance. It's not a mystery when you look at what they were doing. They were saying, well, we're going to treat this on a case-by-case basis, and maybe we'll let the parents know if a child rejects their body. We're going to try and give transgender students access to whatever they want. Well, maybe it sounds nice, but that's not legal. Title IX is based on biological reality. The law is clear, and the courts have upheld that fact, that students are supposed to be treated equally on the basis of sex. And when you allow boys into girls' sports and spaces, you violate that law.
So is the
yes,
allegation on your end that their policies allow this to happen, and not necessarily that it's happened yet, but that their policies would allow this type of illegal behavior to happen? And if so, what is in those policies for these school districts in particular in Kansas that parents right now need to know about?
That's exactly right. So policies in these districts, instead of saying we're going to believe that men are men and women are women and you can't switch teams at will, they say, well, when a student's transgender, maybe you tell the parents. That's a violation of something called FERPA, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. When a child rejects his or her own body, the parents should never be kept in the dark or be the last to know. That's wrong. This is also a Title IX issue when their policies say, we're going to handle this on a case-by-case basis. We're going to prioritize the transgender students' feelings. Again, sounds nice, but not legal. Men's sports are for men, women's sports are for women. Men's restrooms and locker rooms are for men. Women's restrooms and locker rooms are for women. So those policies do run afoul of the law, and we're glad that the Office for Civil Rights is investigating.
Did parents tip you off to this, or is this something that you found out some other way?
This was something that we discovered, and Kansas's Attorney General, Chris Kobach, is backing us up. He actually wrote a letter to the Department of Education encouraging them to follow up and investigate based on our complaints.
Angela Morabito is here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. She is with the Defense of Freedom Institute. She was a press secretary for the Department of Education under President Trump's first term. So what happens now in terms of, as someone who worked at the Department of Education, as you did, what's our timeline on any of this, and how does this play out from here?
Well, the timeline can really vary based on the investigation, but if there's one thing we know about the McMahon Education Department, it is that they are efficient. They go after these issues aggressively to enforce the law and protect students and parents. We filed this complaint back in June, and having an investigation open in August really shows that this is a priority for them. So now these 4 districts are on notice. Districts across the country are on notice that they can't get away with this anymore. And we hope that they will, of course, comply with everything the federal investigators ask for and ultimately come into compliance with federal law.
And if not, I mean, federal funding being held back, how legitimate of a possibility is that? Because as I understand it, that would destroy any public school in the country. If they don't get the federal money, it seems like it's game over for them.
So that's absolutely a legitimate possibility. The rules are, if you want to take federal money, you got to play by federal rules, and that means our civil rights and privacy laws. Now, I don't think that anybody wants to see these districts lose federal funding, but that's what they risk. That's what they put at stake when they have policies that harm students and parents in this way. So yes, if it doesn't get fixed, that could be the ultimate outcome. But in my experience, I've seen districts do everything they can to avoid that, and that means following the law. So the roadmap for these school districts is pretty clear. I know that the Office for Civil Rights will make it even more clear and more explicit to them in the coming days and weeks. But this is not some sort of ploy to, we're going to yank your federal dollars. That's not the goal. The goal is to get them to protect students and parents.
All right, Angela, thank you very much for being here on KCMO in Kansas City. We appreciate the time, and we'll be following along. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, there you go. Angela Morabito is on KCMO. Good job by her, Defense of Freedom Institute. You know, it's going to be tough I hope it's tough, because I hope this has not been happening excessively. It's going to be tough, I think, for Kobach and for the Defense of Freedom Institute to prove anything unless they have overwhelming evidence. And if right now we're just talking about how their rules are written, changing the rules is great. I want to see that. As the father of 3 daughters, I want, obviously, full transparency from any school district when it comes to what's going on with my kid. And then I certainly don't want to have to worry about my daughters playing against biological men. I don't. Don't want to have to worry about them going in the locker room, coming home. Hey, honey, how's the day at school? Well, Dad, it was fine outside of the,
normalize the bulge.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to play that game here, okay? No way, no how. But it's just one of those things that I'm glad they're on it. I will never sit here and criticize someone who's trying to get more transparency from our public schools. I will never criticize someone who is trying to make sure that the kids are being protected. But like any of this stuff, it will be a difficult uphill battle. And let's be honest, a lot of these things that are happening, not necessarily in these school districts, but around the country, they happen. And by the time the people that need to know about it, it's too little too late. So as long as they're on it, we'll follow this story. And I know Kobach, he's going to stay on top of this as well. But Topeka, KCK, Olathe, and Shawnee Mission are the 4 school districts now under investigation by the Department of Education over their gender identity policies that, of course, the U.S. Department of Education says violates federal law.